Hey, hello. Let's go through Nostalgic Road. A little drive. Quite exciting. Now these video games you can easily get on your PSP and then emulate the video game illegally and then download the video games as a ROM. So a ROM is something that you can download such as a PS1 or Nintendo 64 or Game Boy Advance, and you can go on Google and download the ROM itself and then transport that ROM onto your PSP. Or you can download the PS1 version or just go to the store and go buy it, like a lazy MF. Anyway, let's go over some video games that are forgotten, that are fantastic as well. Future Cop LAPD. I remember this video game as a child. It was one of the first video games that was quite violent and quite exciting. It was basically a robot cop video game. Now this game was quite exhilarating. You had miniguns, or you had a nuke, or you had regular missiles. You basically walk around a 2D/3D realm, and you shoot up player bad guys, basically. So you can also transform your robot into a car and then run over players or whatever have you. It's quite exhilarating, quite fun video game, and I actually quite miss. I wish it was remastered, to say the least. Crash Bash is another one, which there's a new Crash Bandicoot video game. I'm not quite sure if it's Crash Bash type, but it's like Mario Party. You're set in a little realm of either push somebody out of an ice skating rink into a cliff or a ravine, or capture the flag type deal. It's a bunch of little mini video games that you could play with family and friends, and I wish they brought this back. Have you played this video game? It's quite fun. Motor Toon Grand Prix was another fantastic video game. It was roughly based on Looney Tunes videos or old retro cartoons, and it took based upon old Mario Kart type deal or Crash Bandicoot Team Racing. Except with this one, all the characters are unique. So it was quite interesting. You could play as a Lamborghini type, or you could play a limo, and you could stretch and move your character around and push them off. This would be another remaster amazing game. Another game would be Blast Chamber. Blast Chamber is sort of like Crash Bash, except you want to capture a ball, sort of like football, and then when the time runs out, every other player blows up. So it's actually a little violent, but it's very fun and exhilarating. I remember many nights that I would play this game on a demo of PS1, and I got quite nervous and quite sweaty of trying to figure out how am I going to deal with this person, or how am I going to deal with the other players. One strategy I had was wait till the last 10 seconds and try to steal the ball at the last minute, or the last couple seconds. I highly suggest this game, Blast Chamber. 2 Extreme or 3 Extreme is another game. If you're familiar with Road Rash, it's not quite like a rash that you have and you put some lotion on it. No. Road Rash is a video game where you're on a motorcycle and you kick players off their own motorcycle bike, or you have a chain, or you have a baseball bat. It's basically you're in a bike gang and you're racing for some reason on the highway of Route 66. But 2 Extreme, you could do other things, such as you could be on a skateboard, you could be on a bicycle, you could be on a snowboard. There's any variation that you may think of an extreme sport. It was quite fun, and I wish this would be remastered as well. You know what? Instead of forgotten games, this will be remastered video games that I wish would come back. Team Buddies is another one. It was basically those Mexican jelly beans that you put it on one side and it'd jump up by itself. But these little characters had another thing in mind. You're basically put into a little war zone. You had Uzis, or you had a tank, and you'd shoot other players and you'd capture the flag. Viva Pinata is the next video game, and this game is quite original and quite unique. This game you can play as any pinata you want. I don't remember specifically, but I think you can create any pinata that you may want as well, such as coloring or type of character. But it was quite beautiful also for the time that it was released on Xbox 360 early generation. Now another video game was Gex. Gex made fun of other movies and video game types. Now, Gex was mostly a platformer video game, and you could jump on walls. Your main weapon was your tongue, or you could do a karate kick, which he had a cute little name or cute little saying that he would do with it. I don't know, I'm trying to figure out the words of how he does this thing. But some of the levels included like a Looney Tunes level, which is one of my favorite level designs of all time. There's a haunted mansion, and there was also, they made fun of Austin Powers and James Bond. Gex is an excellent video game if you like childlike platforming video games. It's in between Conker's Bad Fur Day, which is an adult platformer game, and then more of a child game like Pac-Man. Extermination was an intense shooter game. Now, Extermination came in the realm of Resident Evil 4 era and Cold Fear. Extermination, you fight these bug-like creatures, sort of like the Thing, in the Arctic era or Arctic time frame or Arctic field of where you are. You're running around trying to figure out the mystery, and you're doing an over-shoulder camera view, third person, with the laser pointer. And you're shooting out all these bugs and all these aliens and so forth. It was quite intimidating. I think if they did a remaster, it'd be one of the top scariest video games, possibly of all time, I'm not quite sure. Especially if Resident Evil bought up the video game license itself. Which, in fact, I think Resident Evil should buy Extermination and also Cold Fear, since they are very similar but different antics of how to play a video game. Cold Winter was another fantastic video game. It reminded me quite a lot of GoldenEye or Time Splitters. It was a first-person shooter. It's very violent, such as Soldier of Fortune. Now, Soldier of Fortune, you could blow up any part of a limb that you may want with the character. If you see an opponent, you can blow off their leg, you can blow off their head, you can blow off their arm if they're shooting something. So Cold Winter was based on the Cold War, of course. It wasn't based on any cold weather or anything like that. But Cold Winter, it had a storyline and also had like an online type deal where you could be in a little map and shoot as many players you want or capture the flag and so forth. It was quite fun, even offline. This would be an excellent video game, even nowadays, since there's a lot of online player video games. Tenchu Wrath of Heaven. Now this game is an interesting one since it is a samurai video game. It's actually not a samurai, it's a ninja video game. Now Tenchu Wrath of Heaven, you were able to select what type of weapons you wanted to do. So think of a Hitman video game. Now, people who are not familiar with Hitman, you basically have a suitcase and you can pick whatever weapon you want, such as a pistol or a sniper rifle or a shotgun or a machine gun. Now, Tenchu, you could do like the throwing stars, or you could do the grappling hook, or even in the older ones, you could do a cheat code and become a tiger. It was really up to you. I think this would be an excellent thing to bring back. And also with Tenchu, you could become, I think, the sister, which was quite fun, since she could go up on the ceiling or she could hide a lot easier than the Tenchu character itself. Another game would be The Suffering. Now, The Suffering would be another great game that Resident Evil creators could buy. The Suffering was based on executions on an old prison yard. So, like, you had characters with needle eyes for the execution of the gas chamber, or you had enemies with serrated blades for arms and hands, which they would crawl on the ceiling or they would easily open up doors. This was one of the first video games that really scared the life out of me. Now with Suffering, it's one of my most favorite video games. The second one was okay, it was more action-based. But the first one, it had minor puzzle issues that you could transverse, but you could either become a good, bad, or a neutral character. Now with this, you could also become a monster and easily cause havoc with all the characters that you may come across. So they had a lot of variety of video game play, and also the storyline was quite amazing. Psyops is another fantastic video game. Now, if you like superheroes, PsyOps is a great option for you for the PS2 era. Most of these, by the way, are for the PS2, so just to let you know, and PS1. So PsyOps, you're basically a soldier created, and you have 4 different type of superpowers, such as you could throw a fireball, or you could grab things and throw them in the air. Like, you can grab a player, like a robot, or an AI person, and throw them in a fan, and so forth. It was quite interesting and quite different from that era of video games before they became more superhero popularized. Another game is Fatal Frame. Fatal Frame is another game that frightened the daylights out of me. So if you're afraid of ghosts, Fatal Frame is quite scary. Fatal Frame, you basically run around a school, or you run around grounds where there's ghosts coming at you, or they're roaming the area and you're trying to avoid them. And your weapon is mostly a camera itself. You could also do a psychic vision where you see where the characters are walking around. So it's quite exhilarating. It reminds me of Outlast before Outlast was born. Another amazing game was Dark Watch, Curse of the West. Now this was a first-person shooter. It reminds me of Blade, or reminds me of Doom type thing. You basically run around in the Western era, sort of like Red Dead Redemption, except you'd be shooting zombies and vampires and so forth. And it also had hard rock music audio that you could listen to. All I have to say, it is an amazing video game, and it's quite different. If you like vampires and shooting things, I would highly suggest this one. A game if you love Grand Theft Auto, and if you love Britain. It's called The Getaway. The Getaway was quite remarkable when I first found it. Now, when I first played this video game, it didn't have a health bar, it didn't have bullet information. I just had to play the game and then try to survive. And then also it had like little details of blinking or car crash physics were quite astonishing at that time as well. Driver 3 gets a lot of crap, but Driver 3 has amazing car physics, and The Getaway has the same. The Getaway, if you want something exhilarating, is sort of like Snatch or The Godfather in a British form. So I would highly suggest that if you want something different for Grand Theft Auto, while you wait for Grand Theft Auto 6, which will be coming out in 2050. Last game would be Urban Chaos Riot Response. Now this game is a first-person shooter. It is quite fun if you're into SWAT team type deal, which SWAT is another excellent video game for a PS2 that's sort of a hidden gem. But this game, you run around and do different scenarios like sniping and so forth. Actually, another game that I love that is more known for players, I remember this game to be quite cheap even in the Xbox 360 era. It was called Rainbow Six Vegas 1 and 2. Now this game was about $5 even when it was released basically. For some reason it wasn't really well received, but it is a very fun game if you like first-person shooter and strategy games. You basically are dropped into a Vegas casino and you try to figure out a hostage situation the best that you can. So I would highly suggest these video games if you're looking for something different nowadays. I know the graphics may not be amazing, but the fun is still there and quite amazing, to say the least. I know I keep saying amazing, but these games are quite terrific. Do you have a favorite video game that has been forgotten, or a video game that you would like to be remade or remastered perhaps? Let me know down in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, please. That'd be fantastic. Give me some motivation to do more videos. Thank you and have a great day. Bye.